Welcome back to the Chris Gates Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me here in today's episode. As always, I'm super pumped that you are here, that you downloaded, that you subscribed, and that you're listening. And we've got a good episode, a good topic to dive into today. This one's going to be a little bit different than the Q&A style podcast or the deep dive style podcast that I normally do here on the feed. What we're going to do today is dive into actually a mini episode. So the topic of today's mini episode is, do you need to train your abs directly? And this is a clip from a Q&A I did way back in 2022, about a year ago. Did a listener Q&A, and we talked about ab training and what you need to do, what is required to see six-pack abs or just get a stronger core, stronger midsection, more defined abdominal muscles. And I dive into a lot of principles that I think that you should focus on. Part of the reason I wanted to share this clip is because I actually have a long-form article coming very soon on the best exercises to train your abs. And I thought this would be a good precursor to that, to talk a little bit about just the concepts of ab training, what you need to be focused on if you want to build bigger abs, stronger abs, more visible, defined abs. And that's what this episode is going to dive in deep on. And then what I would say is, if you find this helpful, or if you just heard me talk about the article that's coming and you want to get it, you want to learn more, well, make sure that you're subscribed to my mailing list. I'll make sure that there is a link in the show notes to this episode where you can click over to my website, sign up for the mailing list, and I'm going to be sending this article out to every single person on my mailing list the minute that it is published live on the World Wide Web. So that's what we're doing here today, and I hope you find this mini episode helpful. If you did, make sure to subscribe so that you get every podcast episode that I release the minute that it is released. Again, hit that mailing list if you want to stay up to date with the content that I'm sharing. And lastly, I'm a coach. So if you've listened to the podcast for a while, I'm sure you're familiar with that. I'm an online fitness coach. I work with people all over the world to achieve their health and fitness goals through strength training, cardio, nutrition, all that good stuff. I help people build programs that are personalized to you so that you can make the progress that you're looking for, not only now, but make sure that it's sustainable progress. And, if that's something that you're interested in and you want to learn more, there will also be a link to my coaching page in the show notes where you can learn about online fitness coaching, how we might work together, and what me and my clients have been up to. Because there's a lot of client testimonials on my website of, man, the people I work with are just freaking awesome. I wake up and do check-ins first thing in the morning every day, and I get super excited. Like when my alarm goes off, I know it sounds really cliche, but when my alarm goes off, I don't hit snooze. I just pop right out of bed because I know I get to go downstairs, make some coffee. That's a big part of it. But then I also get to dive into client programs, check out what people have been up to, and do our check-ins every day, and it's a blast. So you can read about what some of the folks, the amazing folks that I work with, are up to, have been up to, and have accomplished on my website. But with that, I will not delay anymore. Let's get into the mini episode. The topic of the day: do you need to train your abs directly? Do you really need to specifically train your abs? I've heard a few different things about this. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, this is one where, depending on who you talk to, the answer will be yes or no, or maybe anywhere in between. My answer is going to be a combination of all those answers, and I'll walk you through a few scenarios that'll help you understand whether you should be training at your abs directly. I will tell you this, as a coach, the amount of ab and core abdominal training that I give people in their programs to start, it normally gets, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say it like normally, because that makes it sound like all the time I'm getting this reaction, but I get a popular reaction of why aren't we doing very much ab training? Because I'll give 1 to 2 different exercises for the week, each week. And that's because I think for the most part, the common perception of how you should train your abs is way over the top. You do not need to be doing 15 different ab exercises and as many reps as you possibly can of all of those different ab exercises each week, or I mean, God forbid, within a single session. Listen, I've been there. I've done like the Insanity and the P90X workout. Those are the things that got me started with fitness a decade or more ago. And I remember doing like Ab Ripper X for P90X, and it was probably, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 different ab exercises, tons of volume, tons of reps. I'm sure it helped me build some of my abdominals that I have now, but like looking back now, knowing what I know from a strength and conditioning perspective, it was way more than I needed to be doing. And I think, again, generally speaking, I think people think you need to do far more than you actually do. The answer is it depends. Do you need to specifically train your abs? It depends on your current scenario. So if you're a beginner with fitness, if you don't have much development in your abdominal muscles, then doing some direct ab training probably is necessary if that's important to you, just to be able to build up your abdominal muscles. Your abs are no different than any other muscle group in your body in terms of like the fundamental principles of what it takes to build muscle. If you're trying to get bigger biceps, bigger shoulders, a bigger back, bigger quads, whatever you want to build, abs are the same. You need to be progressively overloading them over time. And I've written about this a ton. I've talked about it on the podcast a ton. So you can go back for like more detailed information on these principles if you want. I'll summarize them here very quickly. Most people see a benefit of doing 10 or more sets per muscle group that you want to build. And within those sets, you need to be lifting legitimately close to failure. So on each set, you should be lifting within 1 to 2 to 3 reps of failure. If you're further away from failure than that, you're probably not giving yourself the stimulus that you need to build muscle. Beginners, it's a little bit easier when you get started, but as you get into it, you're going to have to train harder and harder. So if you're a beginner or if you don't have much development in your abs, I would recommend that you do some direct ab training. It does not need to be 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 different ab exercises. Like pick 2, maybe 3 that you enjoy doing, and just focus on those principles of progressive overload, giving yourself enough training volume, making sure that you're either adding reps or adding a little bit of weight or adding sets to those exercises over an extended period of time while lifting within 3, 2, 1 reps of failure. And those abs of yours will grow. I promise you that they will grow. Compound exercises are also very beneficial. And this is where we get into like kind of a more technical explanation. And this is, where having a coach maybe can be beneficial for you, as figuring out how all this stuff comes together. Because if you're doing compound exercises, those are also going to be training your core if you're doing them properly. So like if you are doing a bench press, well, proper technique on a bench press is taking a deep breath in before each rep, bracing your core, and holding that bracing throughout the entire rep. Your core is involved in bench pressing. Your core is even more involved in squatting if you're doing it properly. Once again, taking that deep breath in, holding it, bracing your core, that your core muscles are stabilizing your body while you have weight on the bar or holding the dumbbell, whatever type of squat you're doing. Your core is helping stabilize your body to perform that exercise. So your core is involved, and that is training volume that can count towards training your abs. Deadlifts, even more. If you're doing barbell deadlifts, dumbbell deadlifts, sumo deadlifts, Romanian deadlift, whatever you're doing, once again, if you're doing proper form and technique where you're taking that deep breath in, bracing your core is helping stabilize your body during that exercise. It's not like the crunch and then stretch. You're not going to feel like those muscle contractions and then the stretch on the other end of the rep. It's more of an isometric contraction, which means your muscles are just essentially held in place, but they're stabilizing your body. So you are giving them a stimulus, which means that they are going to be trained during those compound exercises. And I think as part of any good program, you're probably doing some compound exercises along with maybe doing an ab exercise or two, which is another reason why, like, I don't program a ton of ab training for my clients, because we're doing compound exercises. We are doing a lot of the things that you need to be doing in order to build overall functional strength for your body and build muscle. So we're getting a lot of core training by doing those things. And then we work in maybe an ab exercise at the end of the workout. Later in the week, we'll have another workout. We'll toss another ab exercise into the end there. Now, the last thing I'll say about this is, if you are an experienced lifter, if you've been training for an extended period of time, and you have focused on training your abs in the past, and you have decent muscle development in your core, your need to continue to specifically train your abs is probably less, as long as you're still doing compound exercises. I will tell you, for all of the reps that I've done training my abs in the past, which was all I trained in college, and nobody cared. Was when I look back on it, I think of all of the time I spent training abs that I could have spent training other muscle groups that now I would much rather be stronger with. But whatever. That is a topic for a decade ago. Most of my ab training comes by way of compound exercises, and I'll do some hanging leg raises once a week. That's all the ab training I do. You really, as you get more experienced and you lift heavier and you're doing these compound exercises, and assuming that you're doing them correctly, the need for direct ab training backs off quite a bit. So that was probably a longer answer than maybe you were looking for, but I wanted to make sure I mapped out all the different scenarios, because so many people are dogmatic in the answer to this question, where it's oh, you don't need to train abs at all. That's so overblown and overkill. You just do squats and deadlifts and you'll build 6-pack abs. And that's not necessarily true. That's like saying you could just do a bunch of rows and you'll build, biceps as big as you want them to be. Your biceps will be involved in that exercise, but you're not gonna maximize your bicep growth by doing rows. You'll grow them a little bit, but you won't maximize it. And that's kind of the same with training abs. So I wanted to make sure I mapped out those different scenarios, and I hope that was helpful.